He thought he knew everything about life, about people, about respect. Until the day he realized he didn't. Mark Thompson had spent years running his household on his own rules. His wife, Olivia, had always been quiet, careful not to challenge him. She cooked, cleaned, managed the kids, and smiled, even when she was tired. Mark had called it teamwork. Olivia had called it survival. It was a Saturday afternoon, and the Thompsons were hosting a small family barbecue in their backyard in Austin, Texas. Friends, neighbors, and a few colleagues were there. Kids ran across the lawn, dogs barked, and the smell of grilled chicken filled the air. Mark was showing off, telling stories, laughing loudly. Olivia moved among the guests quietly, refilling drinks, handing plates, fixing a toppled chair. She smiled when people praised the food, but no one saw the careful planning she had done for hours to make this day perfect. And then it happened. Mark's tone changed. Sharp. Impatient. "Olivia," he barked across the yard, "why didn't you tell me the grill needs cleaning? I almost burned the chicken." The guests froze. Kids stopped running. Dogs tilted their heads. Olivia swallowed. She wanted to apologize, to explain, to fix it, but she didn't. "Not this time. I had it under control," she said softly. Mark laughed, thinking he had the upper hand. "Under control? Don't make me laugh. You're always pretending everything is fine." The laughter that followed wasn't kind. It was awkward. Embarrassed guests glanced at each other. Some tried to change the subject. And Olivia. She walked inside. No yelling. No crying. Just calm. That night, after the guests left, Mark was frustrated. "Why does she always act like I'm overreacting?" he muttered. Olivia stood beside him, quiet, holding their youngest, Sophie, in her arms. "Do you want to know why I stayed quiet?" she asked. Her voice was steady, like the calm after a storm. Mark frowned. "Why?" She looked at him, not with anger, but with clarity. "Because I've been managing everything behind the scenes. The house, the bills, the school schedules, the neighbor conflicts, your business trips. Everything you think is your responsibility has been balanced by me." Mark blinked. He wanted to argue, to say she was exaggerating, but something in her tone stopped him. She continued, "I didn't need your approval. I didn't need your praise. I just wanted respect. Something you never realized you owed." Mark stared at her. For the first time, he noticed how exhausted she looked. The tiny lines around her eyes, the way she carried the weight of their lives in her hands, in her posture, in her calm eyes. "I didn't know," he whispered. Olivia nodded once. "You didn't know. And now, you're learning the hard way." Mark sat down on the couch, speechless. For the first time, he understood that respect wasn't given because someone asked for it. Respect was earned silently, quietly, every single day. And the truth that Olivia carried in every detail of their lives came too late for Mark to ever forget. Because sometimes, the people you think are quiet are actually holding the entire world together. And sometimes, it takes losing sight of it to finally understand what respect really means. The next morning, Mark woke up earlier than usual. He usually took his coffee quietly in the study before the chaos of the kids began, but today, something felt off. Olivia was already in the kitchen. The sunlight streamed through the windows, lighting up the countertops stacked with neatly organized papers, school permission slips, and a list of chores she had prepared for the day. Sophie sat at the table, coloring quietly, her little tongue peeking out as she focused on her drawing. Mark rubbed his eyes. How do you get all this done before 7?" he muttered. Olivia smiled faintly. "Planning," she said simply. "And knowing what's important." Mark looked down at the coffee mug in his hands. For the first time, he noticed the small sticky note on it. "Mark, don't forget to call Grandma today." It was the little things. The ones he'd always taken for granted. He thought back to the barbecue. To the way she had handled everything quietly while he made mistakes in front of friends and colleagues. And now, he was beginning to see it. Olivia glanced at him. "I thought maybe you'd like to take Sophie to school today," she suggested. Mark hesitated. Yeah, sure, he said. When they arrived at Sophie's school, the chaos of the morning drop-off hit him differently than it usually did. Cars honked. Parents shouted. Kids ran across the crosswalk. And yet, Olivia guided Sophie calmly from the car, waved to the teacher, and reminded her to greet her friends politely. Mark held the door for a parent carrying a toddler and realized just how much work Olivia had done to teach their daughter these small lessons. On the drive home, Mark kept quiet. He didn't know what to say. He wanted to apologize. He wanted to admit he'd been blind. But Olivia didn't ask for that. She just drove, a gentle hum of music playing softly, a hand resting lightly on her belly. She was still expecting their second child. Back at home, Mark tried to help. He washed the dishes, wiped the counters, organized some of the mail. But every move he made felt clumsy. Olivia watched quietly, making a mental note but not correcting him. She didn't need to. He could see it himself. Hours later, Mark sat on the couch, exhausted. Not from work. Not from the kids. From the sudden clarity hitting him like a wave. He had underestimated his wife for years. He had assumed her silence meant weakness. Her compliance meant dependence. Her patience meant submission. Now, he realized that every quiet action, every small correction, every smile that hid her fatigue, had been strength. Real, undeniable, patient strength. That evening, Olivia prepared a small family dinner. She made Mark's favorite, baked salmon with roasted vegetables. Sophie helped set the table. Mark noticed how organized everything was, from the placemats to the napkin folds. He opened his mouth to speak but hesitated. Instead, he just watched. Olivia caught his gaze across the table. "You know," she said softly, "I've never asked for recognition. Just respect." Mark's throat tightened. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't understand, before." Olivia smiled. A small, knowing smile. "It's okay. You're learning. That's what matters." Mark felt a mix of relief and shame. Relief that he still had time to make it right. Shame that it had taken him so long to see what was right in front of him all along. Later that night, after Sophie was asleep, Mark sat on the porch with a notebook. He wrote down everything Olivia had managed that day. The appointments, the schedules, the patience, the love, every single detail. He finally understood, respect isn't demanded. It's earned quietly. And Olivia had been earning it every single day, long before he ever noticed. He had a long road ahead. But for the first time in years, he wanted to walk it with the person who had been holding it all together silently. The days passed, and Mark tried harder. Not in big gestures. Not in flashy apologies. He tried by noticing the small things he had ignored for years. The way Olivia scheduled Sophie's music lessons, the way she balanced her freelance work with family, the way she handled grocery runs without complaint. But the truth was, he was still behind. He had underestimated her strength for so long, it wasn't something he could catch up to overnight. One afternoon, he returned home early from work. He thought he'd surprise her. He opened the front door quietly, and froze. Olivia was on the floor, sitting cross-legged, Sophie beside her, working on a craft project. Around them were dozens of carefully painted little cards. On each card was a handwritten note. "Thank you for helping me. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for making the world better." Mark's heart sank. These weren't for him. These were for the women she mentored online through her small community project. She ran workshops for single mothers, sharing advice about budgeting, parenting, and self-respect. And she had done it all quietly, behind the scenes. Olivia looked up and smiled softly. "I wanted to finish these before dinner," she said. "They'll go out tomorrow." Mark swallowed hard. He realized that all these years, he had thought he was the center of her world. But the truth was, she had built a world that extended far beyond him, a world she quietly held together, with or without his recognition. That evening, over dinner, Mark tried again. He didn't make a grand speech. He didn't promise changes he couldn't keep. He just said, "Olivia, I see it now. I see you. Everything you do. I'm sorry I didn't notice sooner. Olivia nodded. Thank you. That's all I needed to hear. But the story wasn't over. Weeks later, Mark received an unexpected invitation. A formal letter with a crisp, gold seal. Hale Foundation Gala, recognition ceremony. Mark frowned. He opened it carefully. Inside, it explained that Olivia Carter, his wife, was being honored for her work in supporting underprivileged families and single mothers. He blinked. Olivia had never mentioned it to him. She hadn't sought attention or praise. But the foundation had noticed her work and wanted to recognize her publicly. Mark didn't know how to feel. Pride? Relief? Embarrassment? All at once. That night, he asked Olivia about it. Why didn't you tell me? She smiled faintly. Because it wasn't about recognition. It was about impact. Helping people, doing the right thing, making the world better, those things don't need approval. Mark realized something else. The respect he had finally learned to give her, he hadn't just learned it for her. He had learned it for himself. At the gala, Olivia walked in confidently. Mark followed, a step behind. The room hushed as she spoke. Her words were simple, clear, and full of truth. Strength isn't loud, she said. Courage doesn't always wear a cape. Respect isn't demanded. It's earned quietly, every day, in every choice we make. People applauded. Mark felt a knot in his chest. He understood now he had underestimated the quiet power of a woman who did everything without boasting. Later, as they walked home under the stars, Mark reached for Olivia's hand. She let him hold it, but didn't speak. She didn't need to. He had finally learned what respect truly meant. But one question lingered in his mind. Would he ever fully deserve her trust again? Mark walked home in silence that night, holding Olivia's hand but feeling the weight of everything he had missed. He understood respect now not as a word, not as something said in passing but as something earned through patience, kindness, and unwavering strength. Olivia, quiet as always, guided him through the door. Sophie was asleep in her bed, the soft hum of a nightlight casting gentle shadows across the room. She stirred in her sleep, and Olivia leaned down to tuck the blanket around her shoulders. Mark watched, and for the first time, he truly saw the woman who had carried their family, literally and figuratively, without asking for recognition. Every late night, every skipped meal, every careful plan he had taken for granted was a testament to her resilience. "You were right," he whispered. "All this time, I didn't understand. I'm sorry." Olivia didn't answer immediately. She just smiled faintly, not out of pride, but calm acknowledgement. "You've learned," she said softly. "That's what matters." Mark felt a mixture of relief and shame. Relief that he could finally see her clearly. Shame for the years he had wasted thinking he knew what she was capable of. Over the next few months, Mark changed not for recognition, not for applause, but for understanding. He helped without being asked, listened without interrupting, and celebrated without overshadowing. He learned that true partnership wasn't about power or control. It was about balance, respect, and quiet acknowledgement. Then one morning, Olivia surprised him with a small note. On the kitchen counter, near his coffee cup, a simple piece of paper read, "Trust is earned. Respect is felt. Love is shown. You're on your way." Mark smiled. He folded it carefully and placed it in his wallet. A reminder that lessons are learned slowly, but they last forever. Sophie ran in from the living room, holding a drawing she had made for her parents. Mark bent down to hug her. Olivia watched them, a proud smile on her face, but no words were needed. The harmony of their little family spoke louder than anything else. And Mark knew something he hadn't before. Respect wasn't a one-time lesson. It was a lifelong practice. A choice made daily. And finally, he was willing to make it, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. From that day forward, Mark carried the lesson of respect with him everywhere. In work meetings, in friendships, in the small decisions that could easily be overlooked. And Olivia. She continued quietly, her strength undimmed, her patience unwavering, guiding their family with the same calm grace she always had. Mark had finally understood the value of what he had taken for granted, and he would never let it slip again. If this story touched you, even for a moment, hit like to honor the quiet strength of everyday heroes. Subscribe now for more emotional, inspiring stories that reveal the power of respect, love, and dignity. Comment below. When was the last time you truly respected someone without needing recognition? Because sometimes, the people who seem quiet are the ones holding the entire world together. And seeing their strength can change the way you live.